After their remarkable comeback victory on Thursday, the New York Mets only needed one game in their doubleheader against the Phillies to take their 8th series victory of the season and to remain undefeated in their 9 series played. Thanks to Pete Alonso hitting 2 home runs with 5 RBIs and Chris Bassitt delivering another stellar pitching performance in Game 2, the Mets were able to get the job done. On the show today, I'll talk about the Mets doubleheader and the contributions that we saw from those two players in particular in Bassitt and Alonso. Then in the final segment today, I want to do something that's a little bit contrary to my brand up to this point. I'm going to advocate for more playing time for JD Davis because if you look at his numbers with the Mets since 2019 and compare them to Dominic Smith, platooning these guys the way the Mets are right now really doesn't make any sense at all.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, the Mets had a couple of days off, which honestly, in my opinion, was very nice. Honestly, I enjoyed it. I did, You had the thrilling comeback victory on Thursday. Of course, I miss my Mets baseball, but if there was ever a time to have 2 games rained out and to just not have anything to react to for 48 hours, it was coming off the heels of that game on Thursday where we all just got to bask in it for a while, where Phillies fans just got to remain miserable for days before they finally saw a victory in game 1 of this doubleheader against the Mets. And hats off to them for getting a game. And they did a great job. Some really good hitting against Max Scherzer, and Gibson pitched really well for them. And credit to the Phillies for finding a way to get one. But when you have Max Scherzer and Chris Bassitt, and you're able to go with that combination in a doubleheader, the Mets are hard to beat. They're really hard to beat. And Chris Bassitt said it after the games. He said, look, we got 5 quality starting pitchers, and that's relentless on other teams. And that's exactly why the Mets have been able to stack wins on wins on wins, win series after series after series. The only series up to this point they have not won was that 4-game set against the Braves that they split. And I know you could say, look at the Braves record. They haven't been great this year, but we know the Braves are a really good team. I still stand by my statement from last week, which I believe came in the cell phone lot of the LaGuardia Airport, where I basically said that the Braves are the second best team the Mets have played this year, behind only the Giants. And even though the Cardinals maybe have a better record, I still stand by that. So this Mets team has handled business all year long. And, we can go through that first game. Max Scherzer wasn't great, but honestly, it was a lot of soft contact. The one loud hit was Bryce Harper hitting a home run in the first inning. Those two former teammates, I think, have a good rivalry going back and forth, in these matchups. Not that their personalities clash, but more just I think they know each other very well. So that's always a fun battle to see. And, Harper got the best of him in this game. He also had an RBI single in the third inning, which was an inning where Scherzer gave up 3 hits. He gave up 3 hits again in the fourth, and Bryson Stott got the RBI hit. He gave up 10 hits overall, but again, a lot of soft contact. It never felt like Scherzer was out of control of this game, that he didn't, have a handle on it. And when he went back out to pitch that 6th inning, I think he was at 91 pitches heading into that last inning. He was able to throw up another 0 and give his team a chance. And unfortunately, the Mets just weren't able to get enough hits to string together that win. You look at the first 6 innings, they hit into 3 double plays. One of them really did hurt a rally. They scored a run on that double play. I believe James McCann hit it. But that was in the 6th inning where the Mets actually did have 4 hits in that inning and really strung some things together. Francisco Lindor had an RBI double, but the Mets only scored 2 there. If not for that double play, maybe Lindor's double scores another run. Also, Lindor's double, looked like a homer off the bat. It just went right into a jet stream going in the wrong direction when it came to the wind, and it just held up there and hit the base of the wall. If that goes out, who knows? Maybe the Mets end up sweeping this series, but it's a game of inches either way. And the Phillies ended up doing what they had to do. Their bullpen pitched very well. There was a real threat in the seventh inning where I thought the Phillies were going to blow it again and the Mets were going to pull ahead. And that was when Sir Anthony Dominguez walked the first two batters of that inning. But there was a mound visit that seemed to settle him down. And whatever that pitching coach told him, it got him back on track. And then he looked dominant. He struck out Dominic Smith. He struck out Starling Marte. Louis Guillorme had a good at bat, worked a full count, but just ends up striking out as well. He gets out of that inning. The Mets only had one more base runner for the rest of the game. Brandon Nimmo walked, but they just were not able to get enough hits going in that game. They only score the 2 runs and they lose it. But then in game 2, Pete Alonso hits 2 home runs, has 5 RBIs. The Mets score 6 runs. Chris Bassitt is excellent. And guess what? They win the series. And that's all that matters. And you look up now, and through 30 games played, they're 20-10. They have a 6-game lead over the Braves and the Marlins, who are both tied in second place, and a 7-game lead over the Phillies, 10 games ahead of the Nationals, who they will play next. And I do want to spend a minute before I move on to talk about Chris Bassitt in the next segment to just touch on what Pete Alonso has done this year, because you look at the season he's had this year, and I think it is very comparable to what he did in 2021. Through 30 games last year, Alonso hit 252 with a 357 on base, 458 slugging, 5 home runs, 17 RBIs, a 126 WRC plus. He will go on to hit 32 more home runs over the final 123 games, and he only had 7 home runs in the first 2 months, then hit 30 over the final 4 months. So I think we're seeing a little bit of a slow start from Pete again, where as it gets a little bit warmer, the ball starts to fly a little bit more. He gets a little bit more in his rhythm. We'll see him homer in bunches more, and this was maybe the first taste of that with the 2 home run game. You look at his stats through 30 games this year. After this outing, a 276 average, 333 on base, 500 slugging, 7 home runs, and 26 RBIs. Interesting that he got on base more last year, slugged a little bit more through 30 games this year, but has the additional 9 RBIs. That's a function of the Mets being a better team. And with that, he has the most RBIs of any hitter in the National League and is just behind Jose Ramirez, who has 30 for the Guardians for the MLB lead. So Pete Alonso, I think we're going to see more RBIs, more home runs, more production over the coming months. And I think this was maybe the first little taste of that. What we know is regardless of a dead-end baseball, when Pete Alonso gets a hold of one, it's going to go no matter what. So with that said, I think that the best is still yet to come there. And this was the type of day I think he needed going into the series. I talked about the prospect of Pete Alonso getting the power going in that ballpark. Now, hopefully, he can carry that over and we see a better version of Pete through the remainder of this month leading into those final 4 months of the season. Last year he hit 37 home runs. I'd be shocked if he didn't hit over 40 this year. I really would. And if he does that on this team as a key cog in a really good lineup, the RBIs are going to come. And my prediction of him leading the league in RBIs is still very much on the table. Although, if I was talking major league lead, the way Jose Ramirez is playing, it's going to be stiff competition. But I think as far as the National League goes right now, he's in first without playing his best brand of baseball. And that just tells you how talented he is and how talented this team is. But speaking of talent, Chris Bassitt has been a revelation for this Mets team. I want to break down and start a little bit more in just a minute. But first, betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find out the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So if we look at Chris Bassitt's performance in the first inning, he strikes out Kyle Schwarber to lead off the game. Then he gives up a hit to Alec Bohm, gets Bryce Harper to pop up, and then gives up another hit to Nick Castellanos. So some early trouble. He then balks to put 2 runners in scoring position. Falls behind 3-0 to Rhys Hoskins. And this is the at-bat that I really want to focus on. The way that Bassitt can sequence his pitches. He has so many different weapons. And with Hoskins in that spot, having first base open, he throws a fastball just outside. Just outside. Could have been called a ball. Hoskins is on first, bases loaded. That's a walk that he chooses to throw there. But he gets the call. So, all right. Now he's sitting pretty comfortable. So now what does he do? He throws the exact same location hard stuff again, but this time a sinker. And what happens? He's able to miss Hoskins' bat just enough. He fouls it off. Now he's got 2 strikes on him. Okay, so what does he do? After working low with the hard stuff there and keeping everything on the outside, knowing that he's got a little bit of a free swinger, he just changes the eye level, but works on that same part of the plate, hits him with a 96-mile-per-hour four-seam fastball. Hoskins swings right through it. Big strikeout. You get out of that tough spot. It's little at-bats like that where this guy has so many different weapons to choose from. You really look at his arsenal, and it's 6 pitches, but he's got different variations of the pitches. So I'm not even convinced that he doesn't have 10 different ways that he can throw all these pitches to really just mix up eye level, inside, outside, speed. And with those 6 different pitches that are broken down by Baseball Savant, you got the 3 hard pitches, the sinker, the cutter, and the four-seam fastball, which are all ranging between 92 and 96 miles per hour with different degrees of movement to change up that look for the hitter. When they're seeing something hard coming in, it can break a different way with the sinker, with the cutter, or it could not break at all with that four-seam fastball that really jumps on guys and can get some swing and miss. He'll rely on the sinker more than anything else because that helps induce that weak contact, get his ground balls. But he has those other offerings to really mix things up. Then he has the 3 soft pitches with the slider, the changeup, and the curve. And, we did a big breakdown last week on Tyler McGill. You look at Bassitt, the slider and the changeup, it's similar pitches, similar speeds. And then this curveball he has is maybe the nastiest pitch of the bunch. He doesn't even throw that often, but he can just drop that in there and get a strike with it. A pitch that comes in at 72 miles per hour that just completely takes the batter by surprise. He can throw that pitch, he can bury it, get strikeouts that way. So I love what he's done this season. You look at this start a little bit further, past that strikeout. He gives up a homer to Gene Segura in the second inning, but then retires the next 3. In the third, runs into some trouble. Kyle Schwarber got a hit. JD Davis then made an error, but he strikes out Bryce Harper. Nick Castellanos, granted, first pitch swinging, hit a rope to the outfield, but Starlin Marte was there, was able to make the running catch. And then he gets Rhys Hoskins to pop out, and then he strands those 2 batters. And from there on, he retired the next 8. So it was 11 outs in a row by Chris Bassitt before he gave up a double in the 6th inning to Rhys Hoskins. Then he has Gene Segura up, a lefty warming up in the pen. And what does he do? He pitches very carefully around Segura, ends up walking him because first base was open. That was his 1 walk of the day. So he has pinpoint command. And when he walks a batter, a lot of times he's choosing to walk a batter. Not that he wants to put somebody on, but he's being careful in certain spots when it is smart to. So he's just a cerebral pitcher. To close out this game pitching-wise, Chasen Shreve was able to get a big out to strand those runners he inherited from Chris Bassitt. Got 4 outs on the day, 2 strikeouts. Guy's been awesome. I love Chasen Shreve. I love seeing him continue to perform for this Mets team and continue to get some more responsibility and some more high-leverage spots as well. Drew Smith pitched a perfect 8th, and then Seth Lugo worked around a hit in a scoreless 9th. So the bullpen was good once again. Chris Bassitt now has his ERA at 2.45 for the season, 38 Ks and 36 2/3, but a 0.95 whip, and he's striking out over 4 batters to every walk. So a guy that is just doing a great job right now, mixing his pitches, finding a way to game plan against these batters and to implement his game plan to great success. He's giving the Mets length almost every time out. And again, I mentioned it earlier, but I'll say it again. When you have 5 quality starting pitchers, as Bassitt alluded to, they're going to be hard to beat. And that's what the Mets have right now. And with Carrasco and Bassitt in particular, it's just these veterans that can execute a game plan. And when they're both healthy and right, which they are right now, you're seeing that they're going to give your team a chance to win. One last stat on Chris Bassitt right now, and this is before this most recent start. He ranked in the 95th percentile when it came to average exit velocity. So if you're inducing that much soft contact and the Mets have this defense behind you where you can have an infield that has Francisco Lindor, sometimes Louis Guillorme and Jeff McNeil in there, sometimes it's Eduardo Escobar and Jeff McNeil or Guillorme. Regardless, all good defenders across the board. Pete Alonso playing a great defensive first base as well. I have to mention him. And then in the outfield, having Starling Marte running down balls and right, with Brandon Nimmo in center. And then Mark Canha, even though he's not this elite defensive outfielder, he is head and shoulders better than a lot of the left fielders the Mets have run out there over the last couple of years, whether it was Dominic Smith out in left, JD Davis. You look at Mark Canha out there, and he is just an actual outfielder. And that's the difference. Is sometimes you've seen the Mets try to throw whoever it is out in the outfield. And a veteran Jose Batista at the end of his career, you know, Daniel Murphy, Lucas Duda, as I said, Davis and Dom. So to see an actual outfielder out there, and then when it's not Canha, it's Jeff McNeil, who performs great in the outfield as well. So with good team defense, good starting pitching, that's how you get to this point where you're 20-10 and you have yet to lose a series. But I do want to talk about some areas where the Mets can improve. And right now, I think one of the very impressive things is the Mets have been able to get to this point in the season without really getting that production from your traditional DH. When Pete Alonso or Francisco Lindor is in that spot, the Mets have gotten good production. But when it's been Robinson Cano or Dominic Smith or JD Davis, overall, they have not seen that great stellar universal DH production that can take them over the top. And I think this is going to surprise my longtime listeners. I think it's time to give JD Davis some more run and see if he can be that impact bat for the Mets. I want to talk about that more in just a minute, but summer is coming. And with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take on your family vacations. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bars, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. Have you tried the Built Bar Puffs yet, I should ask? Because those are the first ever protein-infused marshmallows that come covered in 100% real chocolate with delicious flavors like the banana cream pie and the churro. I mean, who wouldn't want a protein bar that tastes like a churro that comes with only 140 calories? If that's not enough flavor for you, you might want to try the mix box where you can get 12 different flavors of the bars and puffs and see which ones you like best. And you can find all of that at built.com where you can get your favorites with our promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. So coming into the day on Sunday, Dominic Smith was hitting 220 with a 310 on base and a 280 slugging percentage, good for an 84 WRC plus. Again, for those of you who don't know, WRC plus is weighted runs created plus that measures hitters based on a league average of 100. So at an 84 WRC plus, he has been 16% worse than your average hitter. JD Davis hitting 222 coming into Sunday with a 364 on base, 361 slugging, a 125 WRC plus, 25% better than your league average hitter. Both of them are striking out in nearly 30% of their at-bats, but JD Davis is walking at 15.9% compared to Dom at 6.9%. So early in the season, JD has been statistically better. Now you look at who they've been since 2019. This is, of course, when the Mets acquired JD Davis and when Dominic Smith finally had his breakout. Since 2019, Davis has gotten 937 plate appearances, Dom 947. So damn near identical sample size. JD hitting 285, Dom 266. JD getting on base at a 372 clip, Dom 331. JD slugging at a 467 clip, Dom 445. JD 34 home runs, Dom 32. The one edge that Dom has is 134 RBIs to 102 for Davis, but you look at the WRC plus, Davis at 130, 30% better than your league average hitter, Dom at 113. So you look at just those metrics in a near 1,000 plate appearance sample, you have JD Davis being 17% better as an offensive player than Dominic Smith. You look at their strikeout rates, 25% for JD, 23 for Dom, but walk rates, JD takes his walks, which makes him a more valuable offensive player at 10.7% compared to Dom at 7.3. So you look at all that, and you, if you've been listening to this show, are wondering why I have always been more on the Dominic Smith bandwagon. Maybe it's because he's a homegrown player. I'll admit to it. Sometimes homegrown players just get a little bit of a longer leash, and you want to see them do well. Whereas JD Davis represents the worst era of Mets baseball in my fandom, at least recently, which was the Brody Van Wagenen disaster. where you traded prospects to get JD Davis. And you could have just kept Wilmer Flores. And Wilmer Flores, I would argue, is still a better player than both of these guys, in my opinion. For the function of a roster, to have Wilmer Flores defensively with the versatility, not that he's a great defensive player, but he can play third, second, and first with at least without hurting you, right? Without really hurting you. It's not like he's Daniel Murphy at second. He's not that bad. And offensively, Wilmer Flores, I mean, you're seeing a renaissance over in San Francisco. Let's look up his numbers this year real quick. I didn't have that before I started today, but I do want to just reiterate why I have been always against JD. And again, it's a homegrown bias. I love Wilmer Flores. The Mets non-tender him to make a trade to get this guy. And part of it is they gave up Blake Taylor, and I'll look up his stats as well while I'm at it. And Blake Taylor has been a functional reliever for the Astros ever since. You look at his career numbers as a reliever, 2.64 ERA. In 2020, he had a 2. Actually, you know what? I'm mistaken on that. Blake Taylor was in the Marisnick trade. Another bad trade from the Bertie Van Wagenen era, but he started in 2020, so that's the Marisnick deal. Regardless, the point still stands when it comes to JD and Flo. Look at Flo this year. He's hitting 269, 340 on base, 419 slugging, a 123 WRC plus. He has 3 home runs. He's just been a functional player that the Mets could have held on to just by paying him instead of having to trade prospects to get JD. But now that JD's a Met, now that Brody's gone, now that there's a DH, the arguments not to play him are starting to evaporate, because the other thing is JD Davis is just an abysmal defensive third baseman. But Dominic Smith, has been able to play a better outfield and can give you some value at first. So I have liked him over JD in a lot of spots. Now that we're talking about who should get DH at bats, you look at those numbers I already laid out for you, and it doesn't really make sense that Dom would get more playing time than JD or more at bats than JD. And here's the thing that really makes it all the more baffling. If we're talking about modern day baseball and being a smart organization driven by analytics, all that good stuff, why is there still this obsession over left right? That it just doesn't make sense to me. Look at the numbers. All right, just look at the numbers. You know what? Credit to Joely Rodriguez. He's doing a great job recently. Looks a lot better. That trade might not be as bad, but when we were discussing the Joely Rodriguez and Miguel Castro trade, we were saying you look at the splits and Castro's tough against lefties and righties. Joely has only been good against lefties. What's the idea behind that trade other than getting another guy that throws from the left side? It's very similar when you're talking about the splits on these two guys, because right now JD is almost exclusively getting starts against lefties, yet you look at his splits, he has reverse splits. Now, not drastic ones, but certainly of note, because JD Davis against righties as a Met has a 134 WRC plus. Against lefties, it's 122. So he's supposed to mash left-handed pitching because he's a big right-handed bat, but really he has just as much, if not more, success against righties. Dom has reverse splits as well. A 128 WRC plus against lefties since 2019, a 107 against righties. So you're essentially taking 2 reverse split players and you have them in this platoon. And that doesn't make any sense when you really think about the numbers. And if you want to break it down that way, maybe Dom should play against lefties. And maybe JD shouldn't. And maybe JD should be playing against righties and Dom shouldn't. And that would give JD more at-bats. And he has been the better offensive player. As I say all of this, it still doesn't feel right to me, because I root for Dominic Smith more than JD Davis. But as someone who's trying to give you some unbiased opinions here based on, stats and real research, you look at what these guys have done for the Mets since 2019 in a 1,000 plate appearance sample, and JD's been the better hitter. And he's definitely down a rung on the depth chart. Right now, I think the Mets are in a great spot where Buck Showalter is mixing and matching. You're seeing Louis Guillorme get a ton of playing time, and I love it. I absolutely love it, because here's a player that you can put at second, short, or third. He's going to give you quality defense wherever you throw him. That's going to help you win more, in my opinion, than just having a little bit more of an offensive punch in the lineup. So if you were just to say who's going to start Guillorme over Davis, I've always contended that I would rather see Guillorme in the lineup. And I think Buck Showalter values Guillorme greatly because he sees that defensive impact. Plus, Guillorme is a guy that is giving you great at-bats, even if he's not going to hit many home runs, although he did hit one this week. He's a guy that's going to get his hits, but more importantly, he's going to draw his walks. He's going to work counts. He's just going to be a functional player in your lineup. He's probably the best bunter on this team as well. Really good situational hitter. So I look at Guillorme for this roster, and I love that he's getting all this time. And I love that Travis Jankowski gets a little bit of run and has his own little role now as the defensive replacement and the pinch runner. He'll get a start on a doubleheader. But there is another level that this team can actually hit if they can get some more production out of one more bat in that DH type spot. And it's up to one of those guys, I think JD or Dom, to grab it, or eventually you got to leave the door open for somebody from the minor leagues or for a trade to come in and to take this team to the next level. And so I look at the minors and I see Nick Plummer as a guy who could replace a Dominic Smith in that role of being the left-handed option. He's not going to play first base necessarily, but he'll give you another outfield option, and he's got some pop in his bat. He's a prospect that I think is MLB ready. You have Daniel Polka, one of my favorites right now, because he just seems like a folk hero on the surface. He's this just hulking dude who's been mashing home runs at Syracuse. So Polka's another option. That's why I love the Robinson Cano DFA so much, because it opened the door for these other guys to get opportunities. And right now, the first two up should absolutely be JD and Dom. But if you look up through May into June and neither of them has really grabbed the hold of this job, it might be time to start to explore some other avenues to improve this team. Although, look, if they remain undefeated through May leading into June, you're not going to want to touch anything. You're just going to let this team play it out. But there's going to be injuries as well. Brandon Nimmo sprained an ankle today. I'm sure that's not going to really be an injury that'll keep him out of the lineup for more than a day. If he is out of the lineup at all, I'm drawing a blank here if he even got removed from that game at the end of the day. I'm sure the ankle will swell up, but they have a day off on Monday. So we'll see what happens there. Injury will open opportunity for other players, but just to kind of land the point here, when it comes to those two guys, JD and Dom, JD's hitting the screws right now. Dom looks a little bit lost up there, so I'd like to see JD get a little bit more run. Anyway, on tomorrow's show, I will preview what lies ahead against the Washington Nationals. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to catch up on everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.